Hello and welcome along to Exchanges, the Alex Martin podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. He's tall, he's handsome, he's hefty. He's the youngest ever director at Strettons. He's the one and only Tom Schwier. Can we get a little clap? Now, before we begin, I'd like you all to remove this part of your microphone, the heads, because we had the team do a bit of due diligence. On the floor? I'd like you all to place one of these onto your... Apart from you, Tom, because...
Put this in the budget.
Why has he got the unwrapped?
we actually have
Oh wow, look at that.
Bit of free branding.
a bespoke Strettons microphone for the one and only. You've obviously got a great relationship with Alex and Alex Martin Commercial as a whole. Do you want to talk us through sort of the first time you ever met and what your first impressions were of Alex or whoever it was that you did meet at first?
Yeah, sure. So it was Alex who I met first time from Alex Martin Commercial. Then Alex Dawson turned up, and I was trying to figure out where does the Martin play into this. Where was it? It wasn't Hoe Street. Was it Wood Street?
It's Wood Street.
It was Wood Street. And so I'd been working at Strettons for, I don't know, ballpark maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
I thought you were going to say 3 or 4 days.
No, it was, but it felt like 3 or
Yeah,
4
you were
days,
very
right?
good.
You're thrown into the deep end, and there was a few little retail units around Liverpool Street, and okay, that's easy to get to, and I'm comfortable with that. But this was, okay, here's a freehold sale. It was at that point, D1 building. I want to say it was some kind of play area?
Yeah, I remember that. It was...
some roof space.
yeah, like soft play and that sort of stuff.
It was exactly that. So I got sent down by a colleague of mine to go and host some viewings, and you know what those buildings are like better than most. It's not, oh, we've got 2 or 3 people coming down. It's we've got 20 people coming down.
200 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I kept seeing Alex Dawson. I was like, wow, this guy's really fucking keen. So we turn up, and I'd had a few parties beforehand, and then there was a little gap, and Alex turned up, and I was like, oh, I'm Alex Dawson from Alex Martin. I've got a few parties coming with me. And we just kind of went from there. We showed a few people around. We let people walk around. We were having a chat. And yeah, it was in the very infancy of my agency life. And it was something that I'll remember, because we spoke on a level. It was the first time that and I say it was only 3 or 4 weeks, but you meet a lot of characters, right, in that time period. And not all of them are people that you see being long-term relationships or people that you'd even want to answer the phone to again. But we had about a good half an hour, 45 minutes of just having a chat. What brings you here? What's your background? Yeah, that was the start, really. And from that point on, I think we've got on very well.
It was a beautiful meet, wasn't it?
It was a beautiful meeting. Yeah.
What did you think of Tom? Did he look like
No,
this when you
charming. He was
first...
young, he was green,
Yeah.
but charming, and he had a bit of gravitas about him at the same time. And it was good fun. Yeah, we never did the deal on that one. You did it elsewhere, bastard.
I didn't realise you had to do that. I thought it was all about just meeting people and being nice to them.
Yeah, you
We've had a few of those over the years, so I think it's got
But
close.
It is, right, and that is property in a nutshell. It is so speculative, and I don't know how you feel about it. To me, it doesn't feel speculative. It doesn't feel like you're wasting a lot of your time. You put everything out there, and if it sticks, great, and if it doesn't, you're looking at the next opportunity anyway.
How long ago was that?
I've been at Strettons. I joined 15th of May 2017, maybe. So yeah,
Okay.
would have been.
So it makes it makes me laugh, yeah. We instantly clicked, yeah. But we really haven't done any much business until literally this year. But there's always been a bond there. There's always been a trust and transparency in our communication,
Yeah.
which is rare with other agents, I think.
I think that's it. And as I say, you're not going to win every single one. It's just you keep trying, you persevere, you keep up that relationship, and that's the hope that one day it begins to land. And property's weird. You can have, as agents, we've all had dry spells, and then all of a sudden, nothing fundamentally changes. It's not that you listen to a David Goggins podcast and you're like, oh, I'm going to attack it differently. It's just you keep persevering. and then things fall into place, and then you get into a bit of a rhythm and a bit of a swagger, and I think that's it. But you need those wins, right? There's no point. It becomes hard if you keep trying and it doesn't quite work out. But I think we've always known that there would be opportunities for us going forward, as you know, between Strettons and Alex Martin. So yeah, it's been a very natural, very organic relationship. Long may it continue.
Can I just say, my relationship originally with Strettons, I think, was with Chris Cornell, who's gone Kemsley. So, and he's just gone too far Essex that it doesn't really, there isn't business to be done there. But he was my main relationship. And I'm not going to say I groomed you, which sounds terrible.
There was an element of, well, you invited me over us on Fridays and Saturdays.
But it
Wouldn't be the
cinema.
first grooming session.
Took me to the cinema, and now okay, you can have
How
two sweets.
old were you?
Patted you like a dog.
But it was natural, wasn't it? It wasn't fate. And we got on. And actually, you touched me, yeah? Tardo.
What?
We were
It was
the other way around.
reverse groom.
we were in Ripon last year, yeah? And you said, Al, I'm going to bring you in on an instruction. Yeah, I really wanted to do it. And you mentioned that first meeting, which I really, rather than touch me, will say I liked. Yeah, and it was like, wow, you remember that? You were really sweet, and I really enjoyed that meeting. And we had our first instruction. I really was grateful for that joint instruction, which has led to 2 more since then.
Yeah.
And can't see it slowing down now.
No, neither can I. And I think that was it. You get, I've heard you guys talking about MIPIM, and maybe we'll come on to that at a later date. But it's, people meet up in MIPIM, they go, oh, let's do 100 deals this year. No, that's just not realistic. It's not feasible. And it's like anything, whether you're programming a goal or a target, it has to be achievable. And I said to Al and I said to Joe, let's just do 1 deal this year. Let's just do 1. Because if we can do that, then we're off to the races. But there's no point setting the bar so high, because then it's almost, oh God, I told him we were going to do 100 and we haven't even done 1. So the whole premise of our conversation was, irrespective, if opportunities come up, then we'll make sure we can. But fundamentally, let's do 1 deal between now and next year. Let's at least be able to come out the following year and say, we did a deal.
And I
fine,
thank you
you know.
because, sorry, you brought us on as a joint agent, and then you did the deal. So thank you.
Well,
Well, yeah. Ben, enough.
I went there.
I think as we sit here, there's two bid deadlines today.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We should probably be on our phones. Is what it is.
yeah.
Is that going to be us or is it going to be them?
I would
Well,
like-
I think Ben's got to make up after the first one. 'cause,
The way I see it, it's, as a football fan, it's you got the home and away leg, right? And we're not talking away goals here count, but
They don't count.
it's currently 1-0 to Strettons. I think you've got to make it at least 1-1, and then it's all to play for.
We technically are at 1-1, aren't we?
Not until it's completed.
True.
So you've got 2 going on at the moment. Are you allowed to discuss that? Do you want to share what you're sort of working on at the moment, or is that confidential?
I think we don't have to speak about specifics, but I think we spoke about on the way here, having a joint agent. I don't know if you. I hope you all agree, Tom. Is that you get
Hear
on
what you
with
have
it,
to say first.
that we're close with, and we all sort of have a relationship with. It makes it a lot easier for viewings and when we're discussing negotiations and stuff. I think it's sort of half the work that we both have to do, and you put it to your database, we discuss it with our database, and we all put our minds together, and I think it has definitely been beneficial.
Also, we're not conventional agents, so we have a very different database to other people. So you bringing us on that rather central London one, we had different types of occupiers that could look at that, but you're the bigger boys to us, so it made sense to have a broader reach when we marketed to religious buildings. So it works. We both bring something to the pie.
Yeah.
And I think that's it, right? It's especially the priority is always going to be the client. If the client has comfort that you've got 2 agencies who are different but complementary, you don't want 2 of the same, because otherwise you're just doubling up. But if you've got 2 complementary agents that are covering off as much of the market as possible, for them to be able to sit down and then analyse the bids, they at least know, okay, well, this has gone around, this has been as far and wide as possible, and then they can make an informed decision based off, as many offers as possible.
I mean, you even look at the bid deadline we got today, without going into detail. I mean, we've got mainly religious offers, and you've got sort of the other developers and that sort of interest. So I think
maybe more Class E and then resi development, and I think that's it. I think it's
just looks at it all.
as two different companies, we complement each other well. And, you know, we've got experience in that F1 sector. We're very fortunate to have a good pipeline of F1 buildings that we sell. So I think that allows us to understand the market. It's, you know, I know you guys have spoken about it before. It's a market that other companies, agencies look at and almost write off before they've even explored it. And maybe that's because they've had a bad experience or they haven't seen those transactions take place. But, you know, maybe that's on them for not giving it a real go, so to speak. Because we've been there and we've been on the selling side, a lot of our relationships started by, you know, we're selling this, we know you've got clients who can acquire it. So we understand the technicalities and the nuances of that F1 sector. And, you know, we cover a lot of bases. We cover that sector well, but we're speaking to the experts here. We're speaking to the people who know that inside out. So it's very beneficial because we understand and are grateful for the work that Alex, Martin and the team do.
I think it's, I mean, we spoke about previously agents working together. I mean, here's a great case of it. We get on, it's personalities that people want to deal together. There's always going to be difficult people whereby they don't want to work together. It's just a good example of two companies, both in the same sort of sector, us being a bit more niche, you being a bit more area focused, but where that relationship has grown greatly. Hopefully continues to do so.
Yeah, I mean, we're blowing smoke up each other's backsides here a bit, but I do agree. I know, Tom, you don't want to embarrass yourself and you're committed. If there's an inquiry coming, you're going to follow it up because you want to deliver. We do the same. We know we're good agents.
Yeah.
I also think it's good for Alex Martin. So how many people have called and said, "Oh, you got 2 joint instructions with Strettons and stuff."
Yeah.
It's great.
Great
for us.
exposure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what they're not good at. Right?
Yeah.
You know,
Is
What
there
we're not
any,
good at, Tom?
is there any when you think of to call Alex? Is there anything that you think he specifically adds? Is there a reason that you call him on certain things to join in?
I mean, it's overall market knowledge. I mean, Joe, we spoke 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
It was probably 24 hours ago. We're pitching on something for an amazing client of ours in an area that, you know, is a little bit maybe outside of our normal patch. And as part of the scheme, there's proximity to open spaces and whatnot. Now, we've dealt with nurseries, not in the same capacity as these chaps here, but we always get mixed messages in terms of, do we need demised outside space? Do we not? And you can only take a company at their word, and some of them say we do, others say no, we can't. So as someone who understands the market but not as in-depth as these guys, it's the ability to pick up the phone and say, Joe, you know, I need all the noise to put to one side. As an expert, how does this work? Do they need it? Do they not? And Joe's explanation was very clear that, you know, some of them do, but with that comes other elements. So it's like anything. It's trying to bring someone in who's got strengths where maybe you've got weaknesses, or just to bolster the strengths that are there. It may be inside knowledge, it may be market coverage, it may be what are the investment yields on nurseries looking like at the moment, because we see a bit of it. And maybe you'll call another company, and then, as you say, you're starting afresh. Oh, I can't take your call right now. We'll get someone else to call you back. It's the ability to pick up the phone and speak to the heads of the company and say, where are we at here? Like, what should I be looking at? Am I missing anything, or am I about right? And
Works
it's that.
both ways as well. There'll be time to time we haven't got a clue what we're looking at, and we'll reach out to you and vice versa. It's coming down to relationships.
On the same topic, you emailed out again, not even 24 hours ago, about a building, and you were asking about pound per square footage in the area. Would someone pay for it? About an F1 building, same sort of thing, isn't it?
Tom Charles Nixon Schwier, can you talk me through your biggest pet peeve in the property industry?
And I don't want to regurgitate material that I've already seen has come out, but you guys touched on it very eloquently the other day, which was solicitors. And I think we, similar to yourselves, have a small group of solicitors that we really enjoy working with because they're commercially minded people. And as Al said, you're here to facilitate the deal. But there's other solicitors we come across where, as you said, they don't want to speak to you. And that, to me, is a fundamental breakdown in the life cycle, because solicitors, if you're in conveyancing, your job is grown about by agents doing their job. If we all down tools and went on strike, it would be them who felt it first, other than clients and whatnot. So that to me is tricky when you can't speak to the solicitor on your side, because, as we say, they're there to facilitate it. And the inability to always get them on a phone, we spoke about it earlier, the ability to speak to other companies in the sector and say, what do you think of this? Or can I just run this past you? That's not something that's always readily available. And it was actually a friend of mine at Anton Page, Finn, who described it very well, which was, we work tirelessly from bringing on the instruction to doing the viewings, negotiating heads of terms, be it a lease or a sale. At that point in, we could be 2 months, we could be 20 months in. Because some of these sites that we're working on, we're advising from 2 years before they even complete. It is that fact of you've spent numerous hours getting the deal to where it is. You've negotiated everything. And the issue is, at that point, that's when the solicitor's life cycle starts. So it's like another deal in and of itself. You've done all this hard work, and then it's, okay, now solicitors are instructed. You would usually, high five, it feels like the deal's going somewhere. And sometimes that does happen. But it feels like you're just starting over again. You've got to build that relationship. I'll always make a point when we send heads of terms, if it's a solicitor I don't know, I'll always give them a call, try and introduce myself, because I get it. They think that we're just the agents who want to get it over the line, but it's not that. Like, we do understand certain elements, and we didn't go to law school or something like that, but we understand some of the nuances, not enough to be a solicitor, but as a firm at Strettons, we're all fairly level-headed. We understand the nuances of it. But it feels that you're starting another life cycle with these solicitors, and it's great if they answer the call, and we've got some fantastic solicitors, but other solicitors who won't answer the phone and you can't get a hold of to progress the deal on your side, that makes it a real challenge. So I'd say not all of them, but that can be a real bugbear.
Yeah. This question might not make sense, but I just thought of it while you were speaking. What's the solicitor culture like? Do you think that if a solicitor saw you saying this and saw you being critical of some of them, will they take that personally, or will they try and improve their game?
I don't think they've watched this.
No, but let's just say hypothetically.
No, for argument's sake, let's say they do. And I think it's a really good question, because there might be some who their nose gets put out of joint. And I'd like to think those are the solicitors who say, well, no, I am one of those persons. And we can't generalise a whole sector the same way they can't generalise a whole agency sector. I think they might, but I also think there's other solicitors who say, well, I'm doing my job. And they kind of compartmentalise their role and say, well, my role is vastly different and I'm doing it for the best interest of my client. So I think to reverse it, it comes down to who the solicitor is and how they might take that feedback and whether they take it personally or not.
Yeah.
I think from the first pod we did, we spoke about solicitors and the clip went out, and then, it was a little bit negative and felt like we were bashing solicitors. We're not bashing every solicitor. There's great, like in every sector, there's great solicitors. There's some who are not so good. We've had solicitors reach out to us following that clip going out, saying, I'd love to meet you guys, chat through it. How can we streamline that process and make it better? So there are solicitors out there who want to facilitate and make life easier for everyone, but the same in everything. There's good and bad in whatever sector. And listen, I put deals together where maybe I'm not on top form. There's going to be transactions where solicitors aren't hitting the heights of where they want to be. But I think it's not everyone on every single deal. There are good people who work in that sector. We know quite a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of it's down to ego, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
And if they got their ego under control, they'll be productive. If they haven't, they'll be a pain.
Yeah,
but it's also, if you can, it's like anything, it's communication, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
If a solicitor can communicate to you, okay, Tom, the reason it's not going as we'd like is because of this reason, there's Building Safety Act issues and so on and so forth. As long as we know that, we're kind of there as a sponge to learn from them. So the more we can understand about the deal and the intricacies of that deal, the more we can then manage both sides and say, well, actually, there are some valid issues here, and we'll let the professionals speak amongst themselves.
I forgot how articulate you are. You're spot on.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is our job as agents, we are problem solvers. when there's a miscommunication between solicitors, it's difficult because they won't talk to us to discuss the problem.
Yeah, they don't see it.
So how are we meant to solve them when they won't pick the phone up, they won't return your call? That's the difficulty. When there's problems, but you're not aware of those problems to assist in solving them. That's where the letdown.
I think they see us as nuisances, though. Like, to an extent, I think I sort of get it. Sometimes,
We're
like, they're sitting there
pesky
on a Thursday afternoon. Why do they want to be called by an agent? Oh, what's going on with this?
Yeah.
You know, they're
I
dealing
think
with it.
we want to earn our money, and which we do. I mean, that's the sector we're in, but we're representing a client just as much as they are.
Yeah, what you said is right about problems. So I don't think they actually see it like that. They see it as...
I think
meddling.
I think the issue is when it goes radio silence for 2 or 3 weeks and the solicitors are trying to thrash it out and you can't get an insight into what the situation is, and then sometimes you'll get an email from the solicitor saying the agent needs to deal with this. And it's like, well, we're more than capable and more than happy as problem solvers to rectify that, or certainly try as best we can. But if we're not in the loop, it makes
like
a
being thrown in the
hard
deep end, isn't
problem
it?
very hard.
Yeah.
How bad is it when a solicitor starts to try and negotiate the deal for you?
There's nothing worse. This is a bugbear when the solicitors try to negotiate the heads of terms and try and re-establish commercial terms, and it's no, we need a lease that's inside the act. It's like that was made clear from the get-go. We've agreed a lease that is not inside the act. If you want a longer lease, we can do that, but it's almost a blanket. It needs to be inside the act. It needs to be this, and it's like, well, fundamentally, those are not the key commercial terms that have already been agreed.
They're just trying to add value at that moment, and that ship's already passed.
Yeah.
Yep. Kill the deal.
Maybe let's stop slagging off solicitors for 5 minutes. Let's talk about, this is a big change of subject, and this is a big topic. In September 2020, there was groundbreaking news of the change of use class. And I want to know how that, from both of your POVs, I want to know how that affected your way of business and if actually it turned out to be a positive. Do you want to start on that? Or?
Well, I'd just like to say 2020, I'm sure for Strettons was a bigger year with COVID and people not going into offices. I'm sure that was a bit.
It was a
more-
real shot in the arm for what the industry needed, because the industry was on its knees. It was really concerning. You know, we were kneecapped in terms of being able to do viewings first and foremost. We were, you know, going into London. A colleague of mine was stopped by the police one day, and, you know, why are you coming in? You know, this is for, you know, essential workers only in construction. We were playing the card, well, we're going to go to a construction site, but it was every single hurdle that could have been put in our place was there, and it was so groundbreaking, the COVID, because I speak to certain clients who say, well, we've been through 3 or 4 recessions in our lifetime, it will always bounce back. But COVID is something that is not a recession based, it's not a financial implication, it's a worldwide, it's a social thing more than anything. So in September 2020, when Class E came in, I thought that was a great move by the government, because for so long we would be speaking about certain buildings. We'd say, oh, could this work, you know, for a gym, for nursery, for religious use? But then straight away you're thrown in, well, subject to planning. And planning is a dark art at the best of times. But the uncertainty for, let's say, education providers, we know that they need to hit a certain start time based on term times. You can't expect someone to take over 20,000 square feet on the hope that planning might come in on that date. We don't know if there's going to be 106s related to that. So the ability to be able to move fluidly between those use classes was immense. We had a good client of ours delivered a scheme in Cambridge Heath, and it was, I don't know whether it was a psychological thing of because it was on the riverfront, and people thought, actually, do you know what, I don't want to be right in the mix of things. I want to be slightly retracted. I want to be slightly out of town, let's call it that. But the ability to go into an office building where you could overlook the river and there's people running past and there's green spaces, we were fortunate that companies recognised that as a value, to be, you know, where everyone was shaking hands with their elbows and whatnot. The ability to say to the rest of their team, actually, we're gonna move slightly further out, but we're going to be in an area where you've got open green spaces, canals and whatnot. And it's, you know, we saw it in the office market more so. outside space, roof terraces became a real key factor. But that site in question, you may remember the Stronghold.
Yep.
Yeah. And we had an offer on the table, but the planners turned around to us, the internal planners from the client side, and they said, look, we'd love to do the deal, but we have to display 2 years of marketing, we have to do this, we then have to go in for a change of use. And then overnight that changed. So we were able to provide 13,000 square feet to a user that we were basically told 4 months prior would have to wait for 2 years. And that meant that we could allocate a third of the space of the scheme to a user that would have otherwise fit outside of the remit.
All right for some, eh?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've got a difference.
yeah.
So on the surface level, I got it, and it made things simpler. And my opinion was it was more to do with the high street dying. And they didn't know what to do with it. But hey, if everything's E-class, you could put a gym in there, you could put a nursery in there, you can do what you want, and that space won't die. But from my point of view, they actually let me role play this a little bit. I was happily doing deals where, for instance, I have one in Camden where it was about 1,200 square feet of F1 church, and I walked in the building and said, "Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, let's put an extension on it, double the space. I'll line up a nursery for it, agreement to lease in place, and I can make that building worth £2 million the next day." Needed a load of capex, but it worked. But the moment that E-class or the change in the use class happened, all those deals died because they went and stuck religious education into F1 and even a nursery into E-class. So all those F1 buildings which were D1, suddenly no one would take, for obvious reasons, no one would take that risk. Caused me a car crash, and I genuinely panicked. I must have lost about 300 grand's worth of fees overnight. However, in some ways, long term, it's been beneficial to me because it's made F1 even harder to find. They're real unicorns, and the need for my services has literally doubled.
Everyone's going to have different spins on that.
Yeah.
It impacted us as a business negatively. It probably benefited a lot of the sector in comparison, but we're always going to look at it from our perspective rather than sector-wide, I think.
I've got a couple of just direct questions for you. Firstly, do you want to talk us through the journey of eventually becoming the youngest director at Strettons, which is a pretty impressive accolade? And then I want to know after that where you see yourself in 5 years. Is that at Strettons? Is that elsewhere?
So for me, my journey at Strettons, and maybe we'll go into how I got to Strettons at a later date, but my journey at Strettons was a very organic one. So I originally went into Strettons. I'd been offered a role as an apprentice, but because I had a degree, I then didn't apply for that apprenticeship role. So I spoke to Mark Bolton, who's one of the partners at Strettons, and said, look, just had a call from the agency that would put me in contact with you. Because I have a degree, I don't actually qualify. Mark said, okay, well, look, we've met you, we want you. So we'll fulfill the apprenticeship role, and we want you to come in as a grad and learn from the ground up. As part of that, within the interview, I said, look, I would really like to do my master's part-time. So for the first 2 years, I was doing 4 days a week, at Strettons, let's say, and then the other 1 day I was doing my master's. And that, I think that's a lot of faith for a company to say, yeah, look, we'll pay for that, we'll put you through that. We can see that it's an investment, and not every investment always pays off. So for the first 2 years, I was learning the ropes with the ability to go to the valuation team, let's say, and say, look, got this answer on some coursework. What the hell does this even mean? Yeah. And the ability for someone to sit down as we're sitting down now and not watch a webinar, but for someone to say, right, this is what it means. So think about it this way. That was really important for me. So my 2 years of training and having my master's was accelerated by having genuine experts in that field being able to put an arm around me and say, look, this is the way you need to look at it. After that 2 years, when I then was working 5 days a week, it was like another life cycle in and of itself. It was, now I can spend 5 days a week chasing down deals, doing what I'm meant to be here to be doing. And I did very well at that. I think I've got a very solid work ethic, and I'm fortunate that I'm in a company that recognises that work ethic, thinks that there's someone there who can push the brand, can speak on their behalf. And they gave me a lot of free rein to go out there, pitch to clients, and it was just very organic. And I've always been driven. I always know what I want to do. I'm not here to take part. I'm here to be, more than that. I don't want to just be
Take over.
I don't want to just be an employee, right? You want to be at the forefront of the decisions. So I think maybe the combination of the faith that they put in me, being repaid with interest, and my ambitiousness and the ability to push for more, they've never put any shackles on me. It's always just been, go do what you can. And fortunately, I've lived up to what they wanted, and that's been recognised. And yeah, it's been a great ride.
Well deserved as well.
Yeah. And also the most handsome agent in the UK. Do you think that's helped you in any way?
I'm sure there's a lot of people who would disagree.
Sure, there's a photo with a helmet doing the round.
Well, you said that he should change his profile picture.
The first time I ever went to meet Tom, you gave me his number and said, have a look at his WhatsApp profile picture. He's a good-looking guy. And I was like, well, you set me up on a date or something.
Two gingers together.
Yeah.
One very good looking, one
Yeah, unlucky Tom.
less so.
What is your farm? What is it?
So the farm to me is, so my family have owned a farm for the last couple 100 years. And outside of Strettons, the farm to me is the most important thing. Outside of my wife and Strettons and all that, the farm is my family's legacy. So the story, as I'm told, is that Schwier is a German name. So he moved over in the 1800s from Hanover. They had some factories in East London, which they then sold, which are probably worth a fortune now.
Yeah.
And they invested into farmland, and every generation thereafter was a farmer. So I grew up on a farm with an incredible upbringing. But I can only say that now with hindsight, because at the time, no one likes to be different, right? When you're growing up, everyone wants to kind of be the same, and maybe as a guy with ginger hair, maybe got to swerve that. So growing up, I used to be a bit embarrassed of living on a farm because it's different, right? If everyone was living in towns and cities and stuff like that, and you say, oh, do you want to come back to mine on the farm? And to me, it was always a bigger deal. I made it a bigger deal in my head. And then I'd have friends over and they'd be like, what on earth, you live here and you're embarrassed to bring us over here. We can play football, we can do this, we can ride quad bikes. And I think it was only after I passed my driving test that I then realised, actually, we've got this amazing family environment of this family business that has been worked on for hundreds of years and improved and streamlined as best we can. And yeah, so for me, the farm is an integral part of who I am. And with that, as I say, we've got people who we rent houses out to, and one of them is the photographer in question.
So is it like Neverland, like Michael Jackson's Neverland?
Yeah, just without all the controversy, I would hope.
I can't really picture it. I'm trying to think. Are there animals everywhere?
So no animals. So the way Essex works, Essex has got incredibly fertile land. So a lot of the livestock dairy farms basically wheeled up, and that was their own pressures of selling milk to Tesco's a certain amount and then them selling it, and that's a conversation in and of itself. But yeah, so we don't have any animals. It's all arable, so all crops. So it's tractors and machinery rather than animals. So we're not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and milk the cows or anything like that.
I thought you had a couple of horses.
That's at my house, and to call them horses would be generous. There's Shetland pony.
I mean, Al could ride them.
Just,
I certainly
still
could.
understand.
Let's put it that way. I couldn't.
Why?
Yeah.
But no, it's I'm with hindsight now, sitting here and talking to you. It's such an integral part of who I am.
Yeah.
And that is what effectively got me into property. I went to an agricultural university, So I finished sixth form, and I said to my mum, I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And she said, if you can spell it, you can be it. I was like, all right, well, what's plan B then? She said, look, go to university, learn something. So I went to an agricultural university, and it wasn't for me. And I knew straight away it wasn't. And it wasn't, oh, I'm homesick, I'm this, I'm that. It's just I was meeting with people who prioritised the wrong things to me anyway. It was, how much land have you got? I would answer, and they say, oh wow, okay, so you're one of us. And which tractors have you got? I don't know, we've got some of these. Oh right, yeah, so you're a proper farm, and yeah, you're one of us. And to me, I was thinking that doesn't sit too well with me. I should never be the coolest person in the room, but I felt I was in that instance. And then you look at it, okay, what am I going to be like in 4 years' time when I come out of it? And that just wasn't something for me. So I rang my mum, first port of call. Mum, I want to come home. I've had enough. I could hear my dad in the background. Hey, he's just homesick. He's, just leave him there for 6 more months. He'll be fine. And I said to them, I was like, it's nothing to do with being homesick. It's just, I don't see this as my career path. I don't feel any affinity to the people that I'm around. And there's something that's telling me that this isn't for me. So I came back, and my dad said to me, I was like, right, you're going to work on the farm, but you're still going to go off. You're going to go to a local agricultural university, and you're going to go and learn something different. Because as the son, as the heir to the farm kind of thing, alongside my brother and my cousins, we need someone who can diversify, because farms are under immense pressure to diversify. So I went there, and we had a module which was all about diversification. Chap came in and said, right, who owns a farm? Do you have buildings? Okay, everyone put their hands up. What are you doing with them? Oh, no, storing machinery. He said, you're looking at it completely wrong. Because of permitted development rights, because of planning rights, which do benefit some farms, you should be looking at diversifying and trying something different. So I then met with a planner who came out and said, look, you're sitting on a gold mine here. If you can harness the potential that's here, then you can bring a completely different revenue stream into the farm. And by going out and shadowing him as a planning expert, that's maybe where my keenness and interest in property started, and the ability to turn something from this into that was how it kind of translated. And yeah, and then I went into property. So it was always on the basis of, son, go out, but bring something different to the table. And it's worked really, really well for me. It's worked well for Strettons, and it's worked incredibly well for the farm as well.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Sounds like a job interview, isn't it? Where do you see
Get
me?
your crystal ball out.
Yeah.
If it's not job, kids, family, all the rest of it.
You not got kids or?
No, I'm married to, my wife is unbelievable. She is more driven than me. She's got the mentality of a businessman. She's got 4 businesses of her own. So we clicked very early on.
4?
4 businesses.
Wish I looked at my wife that way.
That's
sorry,
bang
Dusty.
out of order.
Sorry, I love
Does she watch this podcast?
She does,
will.
and she'll see.
Won't
that.
after this.
No.
I'm clipping this up specifically
don't
for
mean-
She
her.
knows that
Go on, say the truth.
she's a good baker.
I second that, by the way.
Yeah.
As you can see.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be the one to say that. But so we got married 2 years ago, and instantly I knew, having met her, she was kind of raised by her dad. Her dad, my father-in-law, is someone I've got immense respect for. He's been successful in numerous different walks of life, came from very humble beginnings, has made himself, a successful man. But if you met him, you wouldn't kind of think that. He holds himself very well. And I think the fact that my wife spent so much time with him growing up, she's got perhaps more of a, if we say a male business-minded mentality, which has meant that she's been very supportive of me with my work. We've got a business together outside of Strettons. We've got the Airbnb at Luxury Country Stays. And yeah, so we're enjoying working together. She's enjoying doing her line of work. And at some point, yeah, kids would be great. But I'm 29, she's 28. It's not something that we're looking at in the immediate future.
I'd want kids by then. I'd want a couple of kids by then.
Joe, how are you only?
Speaking from experience, enjoy your life
Joe,
while you can.
how are you only 2 years older than Tom? You look about.
I'm soon to be 3. Less said, the better, right?
Okay, here's a question because he's been given it quite a lot. What do you think of Ben Olstein as a human being? What do you make of him?
Loser.
Who's Ben?
Loser.
No, I think agents recognise agents, right? And we spoke about it earlier. There are relationships that you cultivate within this industry. And I remember when Al first brought on Joe.
Wow.
No, but let's look at that. I mean, Al, you must feel. I mean, what Joe's brought to the company is a true asset.
Absolutely.
And
it was a slow burn, but he is now an absolute killing machine.
He is, and I see the same with Ben. I think Ben's got that. An awful lot at this fairly junior age, let's say, of the industry, and I think he sits so well within your dynamic. So as much as I would love to throw him under the bus, I've got an awful lot of time for Ben. He's very communicative. I mean, we talk probably 2 or 3 times a day because of the deals that are going on. But it's the ability, as you say, it's sometimes a problem shared is a problem halved, and to be able to work as a team, but with 2 different respective caps on, with an Alex Martin and a Strettons cap on, I think goes a long way. So.
Yeah. Who do you communicate with the most?
Probably. I mean, you might say probably at the moment me. We speak on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the way property goes. You will have agents, you'll have clients that you speak to very regularly for a period of time, and then you might go to maybe I'll speak with Al more, and then, as I say, yesterday it was this is something that's nursery focused. I'm going to speak to Joe because that's his strong suit, and I think the ability to have 3 experts within a niche industry goes a long way, and I think is why Alex Martin are progressing incredibly well. So let me ask you, a deal completes, and maybe it's a deal that you've been working on for a long time. You just get the email from the solicitors, well done, right, we've all completed. Do you feel incredibly happy? Because I think the reason I asked the question for me as an agent, because there's multiple deals going on, and as you say, because it's been protracted and it's been delayed and there's been maybe a chip here or a chip there, it's almost, okay, great that that's done, but I've got 20 other transactions that need. So I'm probably guilty, and it would be interesting to hear your thoughts, whether it's an agent thing. It's we're almost never satisfied, because if you wine and dine out on that amazing deal, you almost take your eye off the ball of the other transactions that are taking place.
How many do you have going on at any one time?
I'd say between 10 and 20.
Is that in legals, or is that, look, I'm throwing this out there, I've got that?
I would say negotiations, maybe in legals. Yeah, I'd say around about 10 at any one time in legals.
Yeah.
That's the problem for us. I think at anyone, we've got 10 each, possibly.
Yeah.
25 to 30 transactions, whilst we've got a black book every day, which we've got 20, 30, if not 40 sites.
Yeah, I'd say for
managing.
plates. It's just spinning the
spinning
plates. Just keep spinning, and then hopefully one drops and that goes in. But you've got to run around the room, just keep them spinning.
That was the hardest thing to learn. I think it was my first progress bit. On my second, you said to me, you got to keep spinning plates. You're not spinning hard enough, and that is it. It's like balancing all the different deals.
Still more to come from you as well.
Yeah, there is.
But it is, you can sometimes, you romanticize a certain deal in your head. I had one going into Christmas that we fortunately exchanged upon, and it was a site that, between Strettons, our joint agent, we've been working on for 2 years. We were having early morning meetings every month, and it was, what are we going to do here? And I was fortunate enough to agree a sale of the whole 35,000 square feet. And in my head, I was thinking, once this exchange is going into Christmas, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna have a bottle of champagne, or had this romantic idea of how I was gonna celebrate. And we exchanged, and then 2 hours later, I've got a client calling me saying, I've just paid 30 grand's worth of empty business rates. What's going on with my building?
Yeah.
And I think it's that it brings you back down.
Yeah.
But as agents, I don't think we should ever kind of be
Rest on your laurels.
Yeah, you can never fully be satisfied. No. It's important to enjoy the wins, and it really is. But it's something that I would say personally I've been quite bad at, because I can't enjoy it because I'm then worried about the other deals going
as
ahead.
quickly as you agree one falls away.
yeah.
That's
You always
the-
say never
the
bank
life
it.
and soul of the job.
You always say
Yeah.
that.
I mean, our pipeline as it sits today looks pretty healthy, but we know firsthand a third of that is going to fall off, and it's constant replenishing.
Well, the job always has to be done, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to just go out and celebrate and leave everything else, leave it out to pasture kind of thing. You're fully focused on what's going on. So it's a really weird industry. Like, we'll have certain people say, all you care about is the commission and getting the deal done.
Hate that.
Yeah.
Such bullshit.
It is, and it's not a true reflection of, I think, how we operate, because they're not all quick deals. You look at maybe residential, for instance, maybe the lettings, especially on residential, move very quickly. We've had leasing deals that take 2 years. And it does. It drains you. You put your all into it, and you take it home with you as well. It's not, okay, it's 6 o'clock, the day's finished. You're then on the train home, you're checking your emails, and, I've probably been guilty and been pulled up by my wife on it, where you're out for dinner and you stupidly check the phone, and it's maybe someone who's had a drink in the evening. I'm gonna go nuclear on this whole deal, and you think,
Was that you, Al?
fortunately not.
We're all there though, mate. I get home from a long day, and I sit down with the kids, and emails pop through, and it's natural instinct. Just it's tough to get away from at times, but that's for wanting to deliver, I think. And
Here's a question. What about when you're on holiday? What's your mentality when you're away?
it's always difficult. My wife would like me to switch off. Whether I agree with that, I'm not so sure. I try, but reality is you can only get so far away from things in this.
Yeah.
You should do it, and I respect you when any of you guys do it, but I can't. I've been there when the phone isn't ringing and I need to pay the mortgage, and it's like, wow, when there is hay, I've got to go harvest.
Yeah.
Just sitting my phone, that's money, got to be chased.
I always look at it as if you don't look at your phone, if you don't respond to emails, it's just going to delay whatever's
I think
happening.
it accumulates with interest, right? And this is what I say to my wife. I have this, you're sitting there on the beach and it's all nice, and then you go back to the hotel room, and I'll always leave my work phone in the hotel. I won't bring it out with me. But for me, the anxiety of not knowing what's going on
Is worse.
is worse than dealing with.
You feel like you're cheating almost.
Yeah, well,
That's the problem.
An
just
itch,
kind of-
an itch
yeah.
you need to scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is because you've put your heart and soul into certain deals. I'll say to my wife, I've spent 10 months on this. To take a week off and go radio silence, just
It's not going to work.
it erodes the work that's gone into it already. And as I say, it's I need to check the phone just to see. And there's nothing better when you're on holiday. You check your phone, refresh it. Okay, there's nothing mission critical there. I can go back and relax. But you're kind of always slightly on job.
How much would you kick yourself that you didn't do that, and it only took one call to solve the problem, and a 50 grand fee?
Well, I
just
think
gone-
this is the thing. I was in Thailand last year, and someone had a contract on a site. They sent it our way, and I put it on the radar of one operator, and all of a sudden they'd looked at it historically. Transaction was agreed, and I thought to myself, you could have easily not made that, sent that email, not made that call, and we wouldn't be in that position. And that was a good fee for the company. So I think there's a switch. You need to relax somewhat, but you can never fully, in this sort of capacity, you can never fully switch off, bar for 10 days in December,
Yeah, I think
when everyone switches off, and that's the only time throughout the
But
year.
on the flip side, my biggest ever deal completed whilst I was away, and it was a great night.
Oh yeah,
I think that is probably something that's really special, because then you can enjoy it because you're in the right setting, you're with the right person, and then you can fully celebrate because you're kind of you're not all the way in. It's not like you're in the office and it's okay, great, what's next? It's okay, enjoy the fruits of your labour.
Woke up with a banging headache.
Yeah, so what you're
what I
saying
have-
is just go on holiday 12 months a year,
Yeah, and you'd have deals complete all the time.
Yeah.
what I have
Tom,
found
shut
the
up.
best
Yeah.
way,
Six
best
months.
way to switch off is match the time zones. The Caribbean is perfect
Yeah.
to enjoy an afternoon
Is it same thing?
because the end of the workday is lunchtime, and then you can relax the rest of the.
Best holiday I had was in Dubai, and it was perfect for the time zones as well. Just a few hours on,
Yeah.
rest of the
Yeah,
time off.
yeah.
So I had the opposite. My wife and I, for our honeymoon, we went to Kenya on safari.
Yeah.
And there is no signal anywhere.
Well, then
So
you can't do much about it.
But that was because then mentally I've realised I have probably a very short window, maybe every couple of days,
Yeah.
I can check it, and it just meant that I could leave my phone. It probably helped that it was such a immersive experience that you're going out and you're seeing lines, you're seeing it, and all of a sudden you think, actually,
Who
maybe
cares
maybe
about- who cares
maybe
about
things
2,000
can
square foot
maybe
office
things
in-
can
yeah.
just wait a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, do you think it's harder if you're purely focused on acquisition work? Because it feels like with acquisition work, you need to be at the foot. You need to get that in front of your client before it goes to market, before someone else does it. I think that could potentially
It's,
be.
luckily, some of my origins, I used to work as a recruitment consultant, IT recruitment. If you didn't have 10 CVs on that line manager's desk within 10 minutes of getting that requirement, you've lost it. So that mentality in this industry, fantastic. So see a building, get it out to the database, has to be literally within the hour. You throw the mud. And with acquisition, you throw the mud. If it doesn't stick, you grab another one, you throw the mud. It doesn't stick, throw the mud. Oh, that one works, you run with that one.
I think that's our biggest problem at the moment, though. Where, I mean, you're out all the time. You're out. I mean, I'm starting to be out all the time. Is if something comes in the morning and we're all out all day at viewings and stuff, it can't go. And then you've missed.
time is
You've
key.
just missed it. It's
Yeah, and there's only so much you can do from your
Yeah.
mobile, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
know,
I mean,
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I
mean,
live in
Alex
my,
is-
my office is my
is-
car. I just
Yeah.
sit in the mobile.
7 days a week. I mean, it's
I don't know if
Ben
you
and
ever
I-
have it for me on my phone. If it's a certain file size on my phone, it won't load, or certain documents
it's
won't
just so
load.
Yeah.
fidgety. isn't
It's horrible, but you just
Yeah.
deal with it. But from the acquisition side to now where we're in a position over the last few years where, I mean, we're getting instruction a week at the moment. It's killing us, but fantastic. But it's a whole new mindset because you can't just throw the mud and leave it. You've got to actually resolve the problem. You've got to sell this building. And that has had to teach us how to operate in a very, very different way.
Yeah. So Matt, you asked me earlier, where do I see myself in 5 years? Al, for Alex Martin Commercial, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the strategy? What's the
Can I just first say, Matt, you're fired now. He's the you host.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're trying to steal my
Yeah.
job.
Don't worry, it's the second time you've been fired. So, yeah. You're better at this than work.
We just want to keep growing. It's organic, and I want to go more national, 100% more national within the sectors that we're in, and we'll see where it goes.
And are there too many? Because when I think of London and immediate areas, F1, it's Alex Martin, right?
Yeah.
Are there many competitors outside in the home counties and the like, or are
No.
they?
There's no competitors out there,
Yeah.
none. So
Not for religious.
yeah, it'll just be a little agent in that area marketing an F1 building. That's what it will be. So I just want to get well known. And one of our, sorry to mention another company, but one we're doing a lot with is Savills. So and then we take the buildings to auction. But we're a joint agent with them, and it means we get national exposure, which is absolutely
It's
fantastic.
so
I think-
difficult. Gone.
No, I was going to say the difficulty is whilst the D1 sector was schools, nurseries, religious, I think the religious sector, because it is so difficult to deal with these people in the nicest possible manner to state that, and your patience was highlighted previously, because people are more knowledgeable with regards to the investment values of special needs schools now, nurseries historically, it's far more competitive. So I think whilst there's not a direct competition countrywide, people are more knowledgeable about that sector. So there's more competition when we're coming up on those types of buildings and investments.
The line I always use: the business was born from faith. So
Yeah.
take the faith up the country, other business will grow.
Follow suit.
Yeah.
Well, it's not London specific, is it? Right. I mean, I think a lot of the transactions we're doing at the moment, let's say within that Class E sector, we're doing a lot with gyms, with wellness, so sauna and plunges and medical and all of this stuff. But some of those operators, it's a model that works very well in London. It's like anything. London sneezes, everyone else catches a cold, right? So that doesn't always translate. But I think with religious, with faith, that's something that is countrywide.
It is, but the value is so
Yeah,
difficult.
I mean, we just had something to market in Birmingham, and if it was in London, obviously it would literally go a million times over.
Tenfold, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like dealing with the people in different cities. We don't know them. We know the F1 market, but we don't know the Birmingham market specifically. So
Yeah.
it is different.
The moment you step outside the M25, values drop off like a cliff. But then there are little pockets which we're learning. Go into Luton, and it's as strong as London values there.
Reading.
Reading,
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about property events. I went to a few. I absolutely hated them. I felt very out of place.
You and
But
me both.
everyone else seemed to be having a great time. And I want to know, do you actually enjoy these events when you're there? Are you having a good time, or are you putting on a front? Are you smiling?
It's a really good question because I think it's a little bit of both. For me, there's certain events I've been to where it's okay, turn up, show your face, shake some hands, and have a few conversations. I think it goes back to it's all about the company that you're in. That's like saying, do you actually enjoy going to parties? Well, we've all been to parties where you think, what's the time? Are we okay to leave now? Is that
Should we
rude?
remind Tom that when we threw a little shindig in Christmas, he only stayed for 5 minutes and left, so maybe he didn't enjoy the company that much
No, the fact that I had another commitment, but I still turned up.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you
By
had
the
a...
sounds
Well,
of
no,
that
no,
commitment,
He
I
was
would have been
invited and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an agent's thing.
Oh,
I think I
right.
did actually ask after you.
Oh, really?
At that event. And then when they said that you weren't coming, I was
That's
like,
why you left
yeah,
early.
yeah. We'll catch up on the Exchanges podcast.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's a bit of both. I went to one recently, which was the Young Norwood dinner, and it's not something I've ever been to before. And actually, we sat down. We had our head of auctions, Andrew Brown, was auctioning off prizes and whatnot. And it was really nice. Maybe it was an element of, the Strettons brand being out there. And, it's like if you work with someone and you see them in their element. I mean, Andrew Brown is an exceptional auctioneer. And to see him up on stage doing his thing, and we had a really good table and there were some other companies there, it was really enjoyable. But that's not one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't mean that every single event is. Sometimes I'm with you. You'll turn up and kind of quickly gauge, is this something for me? But I think it's mentality. If you go in there with the right mentality, you'll probably enjoy it a bit more. But we're all human, and that doesn't always work. So I think it's a little bit of both would be my answer.
Talking of auctions, I've been to a few of these networking do's whereby there's a silent auction, and a few too many beers have left a couple of items in my loft, shall we say. That's
I got done on a silent auction.
Really?
Yeah. We had, I think it was for the shelter charity. We went there with a client of ours, H Group, and it was a 2-night stay in the Cotswolds. I thought, that's a bit of me.
Go.
That's a bit of me. So all of a sudden my ears pricked up and I was like, that's quite interesting. And I thought, do you know what? As I said earlier, my wife's been so supportive of me. She loves the Cotswolds. I was like, all right, we'll have a little go on this. And the worst part is you're getting outbid, but you don't know by who. So every time I was increasing my bid, I'm then scanning the room trying to see who's on their phone. And, okay, it's gone up 100 quid. And look, I paid over the odds, but I think when you know that there's an element of charitable giving...
What did you pay for?
Your son shirt, wasn't it?
I've got a son shirt gathering dust in the loft that
How
was
much you
meant
pay
to
for
go
that?
in my son's room, who now wants to support West Ham. So I think we'll just less said the
Did
better.
you hear about this?
No.
He was on his iPad last night buying a West Ham kit.
What?
And then
I think it was
And
Arsenal.
then Joe's dad, this morning, bought him a West Ham kit.
What?
He's a scumbag, Marcel. Yeah.
Okay, and this is an opportunity for you to show some appreciation to someone not at this table. Can you tell me your favourite agent outside of Alex Martin?
No pressure.
So it goes back to what we were talking about when we were saying about, I think when you're purely acquisition based, you have to have a mentality that is slightly different to, us as Strettons, where we do quite a lot of acquisition work, but it's not our, it's not a bread and butter in terms of revenue streams. It's a nice supplementary income. There's a guy, James Cuthbert, who works for Scale Real Estate, who is, without a shadow of a doubt, he's a very, very nice guy, but he will hunt down any lead. He's incredibly transparent. And it's one of those, there's certain opportunities that we can't convert. If we can then put that over to James, he will chase it down as if it's his own, because he takes it on as his own. And the updates, his ability to transact, to me is fairly unrivaled within that acquisition circuit. I've got immense respect for a lot of the disposal agents, because I think, especially on maybe the Class E world relative to F1, it's a really hard time at the moment. As we spoke about earlier, the world of agency was in disarray following COVID, and I think every disposable agent is doing more, maybe for less. But when I think of someone that is relentless, knows the job, understands communication, and the ability to actually transact, I'd say James Cuthbert for me is he's a shining light.
And can you talk me through your socks? I understand that you always have some funky socks. Yeah, what are they're like Alex Martin socks.
Yeah.
It's the same colour.
Well, I didn't realise this was a podcast where grown men talk about other grown men's socks, to be honest. So
I think I previously
Ben?
got asked about about you, not about your
Yeah.
socks. And I raised your socks because I notice every time you're either in my car, because I'm a personal taxi service to Tom, if anyone didn't know. I've always noticed your.
But in fairness, I think that's because you look down at the floor a lot.
Carrying that heavy head, is that?
Fair enough. Fair enough. You got me there.
That's quick.
I'd also like to. I mean, arguably one of the best dressed agents in London, if not. Yeah, I mean,
He's the full package, isn't he?
Yeah.
He carries everything.
We're
Clothes.
not very fashion focused, whereas Tom,
you
I
look
mean,
good, Joe.
yeah, I mean, you copied my dress sense, so can't be doing that badly.
I actually have a question. Do you like Jeremy Clarkson?
So that is a really good question. So Clarkson's Farm came out, and being a farmer's son, I heard loads of people, oh, you should watch Clarkson's Farm and all of this stuff. And, you know, maybe a bit of arrogance. I kind of thought I don't need to watch it because I know the industry. And I grew up on Top Gear, had a lot of time for Clarkson, but there was a bit of tomfoolery and it was a little bit, you know, over the top sometimes with some of the stunts. And for me, as I said earlier, the farm and farming to me is such an important sector in the world, a sector that doesn't get enough coverage. That I thought, I don't want someone coming in doing silly stunts, making it a bit slapstick and undermining the value of farmers. So I spoke to a few other people and they were like, no, it's not like that. And it was only when my dad said, he was like, I watched Clarkson's Farm, so it was a very good watch. And that to me is you know, the
Gospel.
Godfather giving you his
Yeah.
blessing. So
Okay.
I thought, okay, I'll watch it. And I was really impressed because I think what Jeremy Clarkson did for the farming community, he shone a light on an otherwise pretty non-existent sector and portrayed it very accurately, and he did it justice. He goes into the struggles that farmers have. So yeah, I'm happy that I enjoyed him through Top Gear and I enjoy him even now in Clarkson's Farm. Look, he's obviously been incredibly successful. So the argument is, okay, well, if his farm doesn't make any money, then he's got other things to fall back on. But if you get rid of that side, it's just showing someone if you were to start a farm, it's the struggles that farmers have. And he put it on a platform and in his own way, in his comedic way, that brought eyeballs to it in a really respectful manner. So I think it was a net benefit to the farmer community. And I think a lot of farmers who have been slogging it out for the last 60, 70 years as individuals, let alone the hundreds of years of their families beforehand, have said, actually, we think he's been really beneficial.
I think he's given a platform, not just in the context of the show, but the political world at the moment. I mean, it's getting more coverage, the protest, because people like Clarkson
Have you seen it?
are getting involved.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you see that? Clearly, Strettons is one thing, your wife's one thing, but you said the farm follows suit. With what's going on at the moment, how does that impact your family as farmers for the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Yeah, it is a seismic shift that caught a lot of people unaware. So the background was always that if it was farms would be exempt from inheritance tax. Now they have exemption up to a certain figure, and then they get taxed thereafter. And I think I have the ability to separate it in my head if I look at it from the general public, or actually as the Labour government. I think it was a really savvy move, because if you walk down the street, I mean, we're in Tottenham here now, but if you walk down the street in Shoreditch, wherever within London, and say, do you know a farmer? You go, no. Do you care about farmers? No, not really. farmers get the first, I forget if it's £1 million or £2 million worth tax-free, people go, well, it's £1 million. I'd love to have £1 million. And I get that. And it was a really clever move to tax unrepresented sector, tax them quite heavily, bring in income without disturbing the status quo. Yes, you've upset the farmers, but in the grand scheme of voting pool, that's a small percentage of the people you have to win over. So what they've done is they've been able to bring in huge amount of taxes in the future, potentially, to a very small population of people where the wider population don't really have any sympathy for them. And that's not their fault, because they don't understand the way the world works. You're lucky if you can generate 1% off the land value. So if you say, okay, you've got a 10 million quid farm, you get the first million or 2 million quid tax free. You've then got between 8 and 9 million quid that will be taxed at 20%. But if it's only yielding 1%, what that means is these farms will cease to exist. And I get that their whole philosophy was that we want to crack down on people buying agricultural land as a means of evading tax. Have no problem with that, within reason. But as a farmer, I think what they should have done is they should have allowed some kind of, a bit like capital gains, where if it is your primary residence for a certain period of time, you're not taxed in the same way. And I think what they've done on paper sounds sensible, but you've got these farmers who have said, well, we've owned the land for hundreds of years. Yes, the values have gone up, but not through it being more profitable. It's maybe been accelerated by other parties coming in and buying the land, bigger institutions to try and avoid tax. So I think what they should have done, in my opinion, is to say, well, these rules apply to anyone who's owned farmland for under 5 years or under 10 years. But for anyone who's been farming it consecutively for 10 years or above, or 20 years, or in most cases 50 years, those rules don't apply, because all of a sudden you're making a very hard industry that are scraping the bottom of the barrel. You're penalising them for their land value. Farmers don't own land to sell it. They're not traders. They don't buy land at, when my dad was my age, he was buying land at £300 an acre. And the land agents were saying, what are you doing? This is crazy. That land might now be worth between 10 and 15 grand an acre. But it was never to flip it. It was, we're buying it for our own business purposes so that we can grow more crops, so that we can feed the country, feed elements of the world who want a lot of the beans we grow go out to Egypt and stuff like this. It was never a savvy financial investment. So I think they've applied a carpet rule to everyone, and in doing so are penalising the genuine farmers who are looking at that now and saying this could cripple us. And unfortunately, the morbid side of it is that I believe it kicks in April 2026. And maybe this isn't something to go into the podcast, but what you're going to see there is if the farmer dies in March 2026, their whole estate, their whole thing that they grew, their grandparents grew, their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents grew, they'll be looking at their children and saying, if I'm still alive by April, then everything's gone. And there is a joke, there's an Irish comedian who says you're going to see a lot of workplace accidents taking place. Farming has the highest suicide rate out of any other industry. You're talking about people who work perhaps as a team, perhaps 4 of us. So on our farm, we've got my dad, my uncle, my brother, and my cousin as the owners of it as we stand. Take me and my other cousin out of it. Well, that's 4 people who are generating, a fairly modest amount of income. And if that rule comes into place, which is what is due to happen, it changes everything. Then you've got to pay off land taxes. And yeah, there's arguments, you can pay it off over 10 years. But if you pay off a 5 million quid bill over 10 years, 500 grand a year, if the farm's bringing in 100 grand on a good year, it means it's not sustainable. So you'll see a breakup, and farms work best over economies of scale. Every farmer can't afford a combine that's worth 400 grand. So the way it works is if you've got a substantial bit of land, then it starts to become slightly more efficient because you can amortize that cost over a greater area. But with these changes that are being suggested, it's going to have such a big impact. And I do worry about the farmers who are maybe 70, 80 and say, well, if I'm still alive in a year's time, it all goes. Because how else do you pay off the tax? You sell the land. And then what will happen is that because loads of people are selling off the land prices will come down.
Yeah.
So you won't get as much money for the land, which means you have to sell off everything to pay off the tax bill. And it's not everyone gets taxed, and I understand that, but this is an industry that is very, very hard fought. You know, it's a lifestyle more than a job. It's 17-hour days. And this goes back to the point of the suicide rate. You've got 4 people working as a team, but they work as individuals. So when I was growing up on the farm, when I came back from university and it's harvest time, you'd be doing 17-hour days for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks at a time. You stick yourself in this room by yourself for 17 hours.
Fuck that.
So what they're doing is they're pushing people who are already, and the statistics prove it, based on the suicide rates, you're pushing people who are already hard pressed.
Tipping them over the edge.
And presenting them with a very difficult position. If you're the son of a farmer and it's been in the family for 200 years, what do you want to do? Well, the whole thing is that we preserve it and we pass it on.
I think whenever politics gets involved in any sector, we spoke about the use class change in 2020, different government. I mean, we can speak for hours about planning and the state that the planning system's in. It's always difficult when any politician wants to, be it tax, be it planning, be it use class system, there's always going to be counter arguments. But I mean, from we see, we're not farmers. We don't know that sector inside out, but there's certainly plenty of exposure around it at the moment. And hopefully,
I don't think it matters if it's Conservative or Labour.
No.
I think the economy is getting worse, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, gaps getting bigger.
Yeah.
I don't see anything changing.
No.
Really tough.
Yeah, really tough. Yeah.
And last question for you, Tom. We know you're into your watches. What's your dream watch?
Patek Philippe Calatrava. I think it's a very classy watch. But it's one of those where watches obviously had their boom. So my friend that I was referring to earlier, he worked in Dubai selling luxury watches. And you've got luxury watches and cryptocurrency always seem to have a bit of they seem intertwined because you've got these people who, fair play to them, they bet heavy and they can become overnight millionaires. And then how do you take that out into a somewhat physical asset? You buy watches. And I think post-COVID, you had other people who were getting, their living costs were going down because they weren't traveling in, they were getting some kind of subsidies and whatnot, and people thought, now's a good time, and that spiraled into that. Since this year, I haven't worn a watch in London because of the crime concerns. And I did that for 6 years, and I always naively thought, well, I'm a big guy, if someone, and it's insured, and if someone asks me for my watch, I'll give it to them. But it dampens it slightly. For me, it's a bit like dressing well or having a nice car. Sometimes you walk around, and it gives you it elevates you somewhat. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe we could look into that in a more degree of, well, you should have that self-confidence anyway. But people like nice things, right? That's what we all do. We're all here to work and earn money so that we can enjoy, hopefully, the finer things in life. But watch crime and crime in general has just meant that it's dampened it for me.
It's not worth it.
I don't think so. I mean, it's not, no watch is worth your life. And even if you were to be confronted and be put into that horrible situation, there's no guarantee that if you hand it over, it means you're fine. So for me, I may tell, I like everything vintage. I like everything of a certain style. And maybe there's certain watches that I would have that the average person looking to acquire through nefarious activities would bypass, but it's still that fear in the back of your head. And I think that's something that you've seen, the whole London to Dubai. People are saying, well, I can leave my, not that I have one, but I can leave my 300 grand watch on my sunbed and come back and it's absolutely fine. The stark contrast to London being, if I wear that, it might get taken on the tube, it might get taken on the way back from the office. And I think that's an issue that London has at the moment. And I'm a firm believer. I think London, especially in the sun, one of, if not the best cities in the world. We've got some major issues there, and I think crime is one of them. So yeah, it's taken a bit of a hit.
Right, we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
No need for an outro. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Tom. You're the man.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe, Ben, Al.
Yeah, good.
Till next time.